everyone, and I hope you all have a good day. Today in Suha podcast, Suha Coaching Vault, SCV, we're gonna have a very precious guest to my heart, Dr. Andera Stone. She is one of the experts that I wanted to interview for a long time, and I want you to have a look and in-depth knowledge about her experience, expertise in the AQ arena. Dr. Stone, she's a leadership consultant. She is a former global tech marketing leader. She's certified, of course, from ICF, which is International Coach Federation. She is also a preferred partner with one of the famous globally network, which is 6 Seconds. Also, in academic way, she has her MA from Granfield School of Management, a PA from University of Bath in UK, and diploma in Japanese from University of London. With all this diverse in her knowledge and experience, I wanted to bring her to this podcast and to welcome her to my audience in Kuwait and in the Arabic world. Good evening, Dr. Andrea.
Good evening, Suha. It's lovely to be with you.
This is something I want to know, why you are specialized in Japanese. And I know that now you are in Delhi, so I think you have something related to that part of the world. So can you speak about it a little bit?
Yes. So I was born in the north of England, but from a very early age, I wanted to live and work overseas. So it was always a dream. But very honestly, from the perspective of the UK, I could only see as far as Europe when I was growing up. And so I did actually study French and German at university. And then when I started working in telecom, way back in 1990, soon after, the company, which was very international, sent me to Japan. So I learned Japanese. And so that started my long relationship with Asia and this part of the world. So I was 8 years in Japan and Hong Kong, was back in London, and then moved to India, where I've been for 20 years now. So yeah.
It's 20 years you are there in Delhi or in India. So tell us more about this experience. How did that enrich you as a woman, as a consultant in leadership? Give us some insights.
Oh, that's a very good question, Suha. So yes, I was in London, and my husband wanted to start a business with a colleague in India. And I thought, oh, that should be interesting. And I'd never even been to India before. But I saw that at the time the telecom industry was taking off, I thought it'd be a very exciting time to be in India. And you know, India is a very diverse country with a lot of different cultures and languages. So just rich, a lot of growth, a lot of energy and diversity. And it's been fascinating because I've not just worked in Asia, but as you know, I've worked in the Middle East as well. So it's been a massively enriching experience, just working with people from different cultures, which has always been something that's been of huge interest to me.
Dr. Andrea, how do you see the women in that side of the world? Can you do some kind of, let's say, comparison or where you are standing? You are dealing with Middle East. What's the difference or what's the similarity between the three parts of the world? You met the Middle Eastern people or women, you met the Far East women, and also you are from the European and Eastern cultures. So tell us about this diverse.
Ooh, that's a very hard question. I think we could talk about that for hours. And just always remember, so whoever I've met has been open to foreigners. So in any culture, you'll meet people who are open to foreigners and people who are not so open to foreigners, and that's fine too. So yeah, I don't know if that colors my view, but you know, just this past week, I was with many different women from Africa, from the Middle East, from Asia. And I think there's a lot that unites women. We all have similar shared experiences during our lives. But if you look at research, there are similarities, right? There's greater empathy among women than among men, okay? Just very honestly based on research, whereas men are more action and, driven, results oriented. According to research, that's not me just making that up. So it's just hard to say, because maybe we attract people who are like us too, so maybe that comes into play. But the women I've worked with have always been very outward looking, very curious and growth oriented, and very dynamic. So you get the same kind of women across all cultures. Of course, there's different social norms that color how we might behave. But yeah, I still see that drive for connection. I've said it before, the growth, the curiosity, and the collaboration, I think. So that's what inspires me.
Dr. Andrea, I noticed that, of course, after all these years of experience, nowadays, lately, the EQ concept has been, let's say, very powerful concept, and it's jumping to the service in all of the businesses arena, and even for leadership, specifically after, of course, 2020. So I want to know from an expert like you and a consultant in that field, why is EQ is jumping to the service, and why is it has to be in all of our thinking, decisions, and even action?
Well, Suha, that we are emotional beings first and thinking beings second. And I remember when the big bestseller came out in 1995, The Emotional Intelligence from Daniel Goleman, Why It May Matter More Than IQ. And a French friend gave it to me as a gift back in 1995. And I thought, well, this is obvious. It's obvious that people need to blend their emotional skills and the thinking skills to make better decisions. But it wasn't obvious, and emotional intelligence is many things. So it's knowing our own emotions, it's knowing other people's emotions, and it's thinking through those to make smarter decisions. But it's also thinking about, what's my purpose in life? Because that also drives my emotions. So why is it important? It's because people are emotional beings. So if I'm not tuning into my emotions or other people's emotions, I'm missing a lot of data. And whether we like it or not, emotions drive our decision making unless we're being very conscious and intentional in how we take decisions, in how we look at different sorts of data. And it's important because emotions drive people, and people drive performance. And because I know you're an expert in EQ too, Suha, that the highest performing leaders, especially at senior leadership levels, are high in EQ, because it's not the functional skills, it's not the tasks that they need to be doing, it's engaging people. And we need EQ to do that.
Here in the Middle East, of course, you taught a lot, maybe in our area, you've been in Kuwait, and there is a culture resistance or something. We face it, even when I try to deliver this knowledge about the EQ, I have to say it, and I always say it, people think that EQ is all about women sharing their experience and crying. So this is something, it's like a block. They're putting a block in front of, let's say, their knowledge path. So did you face that thing, or what's your input in that? Because how we can, as an expert or maybe as leaders, to overcome this obstacle in opening up a little bit about learning our emotions before making an action?
Yeah, really important. So we were just discussing, I was discussing this with EQ colleagues actually recently. And so we talk about intelligence, but really, what do we mean by intelligence? We mean intellectual intelligence. So there's all different kinds of intelligence. So let's say intellectual intelligence, if we mean our thinking and our logic, and our analytical abilities and our, numerical reasoning and so on. Let's say intellectual intelligence, and let's say emotional intelligence when we're using insights into our thinking and our feeling. And that's a myth, right? So a lot of people say, oh, it's about being emotional. No, it's not about being emotional. It's about being aware of our emotions and using the data in those emotions to make better decisions. And that requires thinking. So it requires tuning into what we're feeling and what is the data in that feeling? What is that feeling arising to tell us? Because we can't control our feelings. Our emotions just arise. What we have to do is then work through, well, why are they arising? What are they trying to tell me? Is it valid in this situation, or am I just reacting? And then make a decision. And, I've had people, Suha, say to me, I don't have emotions. You do have emotions, but you may be just keeping them down. And at some stage, they're just going to burst out, because we are emotional beings first and thinking beings second. Sorry, go on, Suha.
I think you're right. Some people are just compressing their emotions. And why is that, from an expert like you, your point of view?
You know why. Well, what are the social norms, right? People are brought up, boys are told, boys don't cry. You don't show emotion. A lot of cultures, for example, in Japan, people don't show emotions very readily. That's not what we do. Whereas, you go to Italy and people are effusive and showing their emotions. And it's culture-based, right? How we behave, but we all feel emotions. But how have we been programmed when we were little? You don't cry, you do cry. Girls can cry, boys can't cry. And it stays with us. It can be very deeply ingrained.
People are not aware about the importance of showing the right emotion for the right, let's say, situation. In comparison between, now we know about the culture, it's different related to, of course, how they were raised. Why is the EQ is important now in the area of leadership? I was consulting many companies like Amazon and Morgan Stanley. This is a big bank, of course. So why is very important to connect between leadership and EQ from your experience?
I think it's always been important. You'll always have found that the leaders who can connect with people, who can inspire people, who can tune into what another person needs in that moment, have been more successful than other leaders long term. We just didn't have the language maybe to say, oh, well, this is emotional intelligence. But why is it important? It's because, especially with increase in the use of technology, routine jobs go away. We become more and more knowledge workers, right? And so we're dealing with people. And to get the best out of people, we need to know what motivates them, what levels of stress motivate them to perform, and manage that. And people are not stable. They're just not the same one day to the next. So leadership skill really needs that awareness of what's going on with themselves. Leaders need to know what's going on with me. How am I showing up? How am I managing my emotions? How am I remaining calm or managing myself in high stress periods? Especially because emotions are contagious. What am I spreading? If I'm highly stressed, it's likely my team is highly stressed. So as a leader, we've got to be aware of our own emotions, but we've also got to be aware of what's going on for other people, what's going to motivate them in this situation. And people are never the same. So I think that the gift of leadership is the fact that no day is the same to another day, because your whole team is not going to be stable. We're up and down. And how can I inspire people to be their best, or to get out of those slumps when they're feeling down or demotivated or a bit lost or stuck?
Mhm. That means we are moving towards an era where the change is the norm. Change is the only consistent, let's say, factor. So how can we cope with change as the leaders, women? AI is coming. So how can we cope with that?
Yeah, so I think change cycles are getting faster, and I think the other thing that induces stress is the amount of data that's available, and we can feel overwhelmed, right? So we're dealing with more change, more information. And I think, I mean, this is my perspective, and I know research from McKinsey says that around 70% of change initiatives fail. But why do they fail? So my perspective is it's typically not because you've got the wrong strategy, that you've not done the analysis. Maybe at times that's the issue. But I would suggest it's more that we don't tune into people, know how they're feeling about the change, and harness that emotion effectively. Because when change, and uncertainty triggers emotional reactions, right? Anxiety, some people are excited about change, but how do we tune in to what's going on with people and harness that to be effective? And I'm pretty sure, I would say, and this is what I feel, the emotional aspect of change leadership is missing, or not effective as it could be. So what? We don't engage people at the beginning to get their input, to talk through why are we changing, to air how they're feeling. People know that change has to happen. Logically, they know it has to happen. That's not the question. The question is, how am I going to deal with that? Because I don't know what's going to happen to my job. I don't know what's going to happen to my position. I'm worried about my team, what it means for them. So if we talk this through, then we feel calmer. Just talking it through makes us feel calmer. And not only that, I may share valuable insights to the leadership team. But again, change is a cycle. People move with the change at different speeds. So like I said before, Suha, leaders have to be in tune with the team members, take the pulse of the team and the organization, and communicate effectively, keep that connection going until the change is complete. And I think the other thing that happens is that we put a deadline sometimes for change, but people aren't ready to move in that time period. So rather than slow down and achieve the change in a longer time frame, we kind of rush towards the change deadline, essentially rushing towards failure, because we've not taken people along. And if we don't take them along, what are they going to do? They're going to resist and push back in some way or another. So I think that's one of the key reasons that many change initiatives fail. We just don't take people along and give them time to adapt. Yeah.
Now we are facing so many changes, so many organizations and people are adapting the change, specifically with what's happened with the sustainability and the SDG, these kind of stuff, the Sustainability Development Goal. We are moving toward 2030, so we are trying to cope with these all the new, let's say, the new regulations and sustainability goals and these kind of stuff. However, what I'm seeing now from your analysis, that if the leader doesn't have the ability to move with the team, or let's say to understand and bring in the team with them in their boats, let's say, they will not be able to move forward towards the ultimate goal, of course, of the, let's say, organization or even the country, because even as countries, we have to adapt the SDGs 2030, and specifically in Kuwait and other countries here in the region, they have a huge agenda and even a huge, let's say, finance for this kind of plan. However, people are not ready, as I see, even from my perspective here. People are still not aware of where we are going. So we have to, let's say, have the right tools for this, what's coming in the future. Where's the woman in this equation?
Where's women? Oh,
Because
that's yeah.
I think women are adapting faster maybe than men. So let's see from your point, because you see many women from different or diverse segments in the world, or let's say culture. So are women more adaptable for the change, or men? What do you think from your observation?
Yeah, I think it's tough to say. I think I know like women go through changes in life, right? Possibly more than men. Maybe that makes them pretty skilled at handling change and being flexible. Research would show that women are more empathetic. So maybe they are able to have empathy for the environment, maybe have empathy for the need to change. At the same time, women also think a lot more than men. Women's brains are more active than men's, but a lot of that time goes on overthinking. So I don't want to say women are more adept to changing than men, because I don't have the research on that. And I think it would be unfair for me to say, because I'm not an expert on all women in all these regions. But I think the point you made about we don't know what's happening is really a message for leaders, because on one level, we do know what's happening. We've seen the rise in temperatures and, we see the goals from our government. Maybe there's a lack of clarity that needs to be addressed, right? Or, the enormity of the challenge may be overwhelming. So what can we start with? Because I think the other thing that we all forget is that we're influential, and people follow leaders, even if you don't think you're a leader, by taking a step to, a simple thing: eat less meat, don't eat meat one day a week, take some more public transport than you would. We can make little steps. So I don't know if the enormity of what lies ahead is overwhelming people, or they don't actually know the practical steps to take. But I think we do need to have a more in-depth conversation about this to help people move, right? So people feel stuck if they're overwhelmed. Can we unstick them and help them to get on track with this?
Do you think that habits has an impact on how the way that we are thinking or acting, behaving? Where is habits?
Oh, habits, like our behavioral habits.
Yeah.
Well, yes, of course. What am I used to doing? What do I feel is expected of me? Will influence how I behave, obviously, right? And I don't know if we want to talk about some of the habits that hold us back.
Yeah, please talk about them. We will learn from you.
So, and it's not just women, but I think more women than men, because our brains are more active, we do tend to overthink. So that 30% more active time when our brains are like firing, it's not necessarily going on, well, how can I move forward? Oh, we've got these opportunities. It's more, well, why did you say that? And that was a silly thing to do. And was that good enough? And you should have been doing this instead of that. So it's a lot of self-critique, which is a lot of energy to be going on being harsh on yourself, when it could be going on the opportunities and how you can build on what you've already done, right? So I think that overthinking, just let's cut that off. I think that if there was one habit we could stop, let's stop that overthinking. And I think there's a few which I'll go through. I think one, I said earlier, women are, according to research, more empathetic than men. And a lot of the empathy is not directed towards self, as I just suggested. it's directed towards others and supporting others. And how does that manifest itself? So jumping in to help others, saying yes to more projects when you're already stretched, essentially giving too much. And giving is good, but we also have to achieve what's important for us. So if we're giving, and this is not really in alignment with what we believe in or with our own goals, then kind of self-sabotaging. And it's easy for me to say that. It's not so easy for me to stop doing that. So that's still something I do. Say yes when I really should say, oh, you know what? Yes, if I have enough time, or yes, if you give me some extra resource, or yes, if I deprioritize something else. And I'm sure you know this, Suha, but that drive for perfectionism. Is this good enough? Well, not is this good enough? That would be fine, but is this the best? Is there anything missing here? And that extra effort, you know, to make it 100% when like 98% would be fine, is not a great return on the time and energy invested. And it also can kill confidence, right? Striving for perfection means I don't take on new, different things, and I miss out on that growth. And I think the other thing is not asking for what we want or what we need. And maybe that's to do with a fear of getting some rejection. I know you can't have that at this moment, and we don't want to face that rejection, or worry just to speak up. Do I have the right to ask for this? Yeah, I think that these are the habits that hinder development. I mean, you know, what are your thoughts there, Suha?
Yeah, I love them. The empathy, overthinking, giving too much, not asking for what we want because of rejection fear. Now, is that, let's say, point number 3 and 4, which is giving too much and not asking for our rights? Is it because of the woman is trying to prove that she's good at work, or is it a psychological thing from your opinion, or maybe men sometimes cannot say no?
Oh yes, of course men do it. I think women do it a bit more than men though. But of course men do this, and I coach a lot of men who work through this too. The other thing you've just triggered in my mind, Suha, is that so women are good at creating connections and building relationships, but they don't always use that to foster connections in different parts of their organization. For some reason, oh, let me just stay in my track, let me not deviate from where I'm supposed to be, instead of reaching out and making, you know, growing different relationships.
We have to practice it. Do you think EQ is for everyone? Everyone can learn it and, let's say, practice it, or it's for some people who are very interested about it?
Yeah. Absolutely, everyone can practice and improve. Because the point is we've got different EQ competencies, right? We need to understand our emotions. We need to understand, like you were saying, our habits, our patterns of behavior, what triggers us, situations or people. And we need to learn to choose ourselves, right? How do I want to show up in this situation? How am I going to be optimistic in the face of multiple challenges? And then we were just talking about giving ourselves, being empathetic, but also in alignment with our bigger purpose. And again, we're all emotional first, thinking second beings. So unless we start blending the two, we're missing out somewhere on our capacity, right? On our potential. So absolutely, it's for everyone, if, you know, all humans.
From your experience as a coach and leadership expert, what can you provide to the leaders? How will you guide them? Do you have, let's say, focus on, let's say, women leadership, or let's say the junior leaders or the top? What's your clientele? How are you diverse in this arena?
Yeah, so I work with a lot of technology leaders and a lot of leaders in multicultural, multinational organizations, and typically more like senior level leaders. So at the moment, I have a decent split between men and women that I'm working with. But it is a fact that there's still fewer women at those very senior leadership levels at the moment. But I see an increase, which is heartening.
Who are the difficult leaders to train, or let's say to coach or to consult?
Well, people who aren't interested in growing, Suha. So, you know, if someone has a, you know,
the problem, the junior leaders or the senior differ from which, is it because of hierarchy or?
No, I wouldn't. It's not hierarchy. It's, am I willing to be really honest with myself, to be vulnerable, to get feedback from others on how I am as a leader. And so if I am, I'm open to growth. If I'm not, then I'm not open to growth, and I just want to stay as I am, which limits your effectiveness, obviously. So anyone who's open to growth can be coached. Anyone who's open to looking at themselves, to taking feedback from those who see them in action on a regular basis, is open to growth and can grow. But, you know, I remember having one leader who said, well, that's just how I am. Like, that's the end of the story. That's just how I am. Take it or leave it. I'm not going to change, was the message, right? So, I mean, do you, as a leader, do you want to really model that? I don't want to change. I'm fine as I am. What's that saying to everyone? You just stay as you are. No growth in this organization, right? So, so that was a real eye-opener for me.
The resistance was very high, maybe from that leader, yeah.
All right. And even if you're at the top, you know, especially if you're at the top, because there's a gap, you know, the power gap blinds you to some of the things that are going on in your organization. So if you're not perceived as being open, you're going to remain blind to that and be less effective as a leader.
I love that, the power gap. This is very, very powerful word, honestly, or terminology, the power gap. And we face it a lot in many organizations. This is what we call it, the gap, without knowing it's a power gap, because the top has, let's say, all the power, and they didn't, let's say, enable the successor to be up to their, let's say, level or standards later on, to be their successor.
Yeah. And also, Suha, you were talking about change. If you're leading change and there's a gap, and you're not getting the communication flow, and you're not getting the information that's relevant from people in the market and in the know, then you're not going to make the best decisions. And that's due to emotional intelligence. You're not open. You're not open to hearing from others. You're going to make less optimal decisions.
What can you provide to the community here?
So in terms of my, you know, I do professional work, I do pro bono work. So as a professional, I work in executive coaching, so one-on-one coaching, helping people achieve their goals, whatever they are, and build greater self-awareness and a path to achieving what's important to them. I also work with teams in the same way. So teams can also be coached to create more value and more success and have more honest conversations and build the trust. And I also facilitate awareness in organizations. So on different topics that relate to leadership and growth, all underlined with emotional intelligence, right? Because that's the driver of growth.
At the end, I want to ask you, what is the advice you shall give or you want to give to the audience? If you have advice for them, what you will be telling them?
Ooh, that's a big question. Yeah, I would say, I think be honest to yourself. Be honest to yourself. Just get out of that busyness trap. You know, sometimes we're caught up in the be busy, be busy, be busy, be busy, do, and not just taking any time away, even though people know that that's not effective. So people will always say, I know it's not productive to be 9 hours flat out in meetings, on my laptop, delivering reports, working on projects, but do they schedule in those breaks to just bring down the tension, maybe do a micro mini meditation, get out, walk around, talk to different people? I would say that just be honest with yourself and give yourself self-care and time to decompress. Because it's like you said, the change cycle is not going to stop, and we need to come out of it to just remain calm from time to time.
I think I'm going to name this episode to be Don't Be Bee. So
don't be a bee.
Yes, because the bee is absolutely right to what you're saying. We keep ourselves busy, that we lose the connect with our inner self, and we don't know how to navigate through our emotions, which definitely will lead to many chaotic decisions and even paths in our life. I would like to thank you, Dr. Andrea, and we hopefully gonna see you very soon in Kuwait in person.
Hope so.
Thank you so much for your time, and appreciate your effort and your self-care and the messages that you deliver to us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Suha, and same to you. It's been an absolute pleasure being with you, and you know, well done on all the work you do to help people grow.
Thank you so much.